We come from a very operational background and we've been building manufacturing complex businesses on a global stage for many, many years. And we think it's really important that the Australian market continues to find great companies that have got world-class IP and want to take that to the world. Our core goal is to deliver long-term stable returns to our investors.
Hi everyone, thank you for joining me for another executive interview. We are here today at the Emergence Investment Conference and I am joined today by Richard Palmer, partner at Horizon 2 Capital Partners, a private equity firm that is specializing in advanced manufacturing. Richard, thank you for joining me.
A real pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. Now to kick things off, could you provide our audience with an overview of Horizon 2 Capital Partners' investment philosophy and what sets your approach apart in the private equity landscape, particularly in the realm of advanced manufacturing?
Thank you. So look, Horizon 2 is about 3 years old and there's 5 partners in the firm and we all come from a really strong operational background and we've all got a passion about making sure that Australia is able to continue to grow its industrial base. One of my partners is Andrew Liveris, the chairman and CEO of Dow Chemicals and the current chairman of the Olympic bid. Jens is the ex-CEO of Airbus for Asia Pacific, and Paul Cooper is also an experienced operator. So we come from a very operational background and we've been building manufacturing complex businesses on a global stage for many, many years. And we think it's really important that the Australian market continues to find great companies that have got world-class IP and want to take that to the world. Now we're investors, so we want to make money out of that too, but fundamentally we believe there are great companies who are developing amazing technologies that make good complex things, that make great profits, and we can return really good returns to our investors. So that's why we're doing this.
Amazing. That's wonderful, Richard. Now let's delve into the value proposition for investors. So how does Horizon 2 create value for its investors, particularly in terms of generating consistent returns and mitigating risk in the advanced manufacturing sector?
Yeah, it's a great question. Look, as a private equity investor, our core goal is to deliver long-term stable returns to our investors. And what that means for us is that over the sort of 5 to 8 years that we'd be typically holding our businesses, we're looking for those businesses to substantially scale their operations, produce really strong cash flows. We like dividends coming back to ourselves and our investors, and ultimately delivering good capital returns at the back end. So at a minimum, we'd want to see an investment return of about 25% per annum over that period. Now, to do that consistently requires you to understand what you're buying, then understand working with the management team to help them run and grow the business, and then lastly, obviously, exiting for value. And at all 3 of those elements, we think we've got some real advantages. And as I said earlier, we are practitioners in this industry. So we have deep industry networks. We have networks and ways into about 4,000 manufacturers in Australia that we've worked with previously. So we know what's going on in manufacturing and the advanced manufacturing industry in Australia. And that has provided a really great deal flow for us as a team. That allows us to choose the best deals to invest in. So over the last 2 years, we've looked at about 800 businesses and we're making our second investment at the moment. So I think the best way that we initially can get great returns for our investors is to make sure that we're doing the right deals. I think the second thing is that once you've done the deal, the hard work starts. You've got to help the businesses grow. And the businesses that we love are ones that are have deep IP, who are really strong in developing and researching a product, which is a global niche that can be sold into a global market at high value. And there are many people that would tell you that manufacturing is dead in Australia. That's not the case. There are fantastic businesses that are out there that are doing just that. They're making complex components that are getting sold into value chains all around the world that are deep in tech and IP and are really valuable. Now, the biggest challenge that Australian manufacturers face is lack of scale. And they often find it very difficult to scale into the global markets. And that's ultimately where our partnership and our networks and our advisors come in, because we have deep networks into the US, into Asia, and to Europe. And we've got experience, and we are currently running in businesses in those markets.
Right.
So that's fundamentally how we help our management teams and our companies grow, by helping bring those skills and working with the management teams to build that capability. You've got to have experience to do it. Then last of all, exit's important. Ultimately, we're a private equity firm, and we want to return capital both through dividends and a capital event at the other end. Our fundamental view is that you've got to build a great business, and if you do that, you'll get a great return.
Yes.
And so we absolutely, when we think about investing in a business, we'll think about what the exit strategy would look like.
Right.
But that's not our focus on day one. Our focus is choosing the business well and investing well, getting the right deal, and then ultimately working in partnership with the management team to help them scale their operations offshore.
Right. Amazing. That's great to know, Richard. Now, could you share some examples of successful investments Horizon 2 has made in the past, highlighting how your team's operational expertise and industry networks have contributed to their growth and success?
Yeah, so we're quite a new team. So we're on to our second deal as a team. After 2 years, we don't have an exit from the fund, but the partners themselves have been investing for decades, and there are many examples that I can work with you. So one of the business that we've been involved in is a business called Rinstrom. It's a business that makes things that weighs things. It's based in Brisbane. It's got an operational manufacturing capacity in Sri Lanka, and sales offices in Europe and the US. And that's been a long journey for the investors and our principals, but fundamentally we've brought discipline to the processes and systems of manufacturing to that.
Right.
We've also, when it's been appropriate, outsourced manufacturing to Sri Lanka to get the best use of the resources that are there. And then ultimately working with the management team to actually build out the European sales and distribution businesses, and also in the US, where we've made a couple of acquisitions. That business is in a process of being exited. It will be over the next period. But that's a really good example of the type of work that we would do with our portfolio companies.
Absolutely. That's great to know, Richard. Now, can you elaborate on the specific criteria that you look for in potential investment opportunities within the advanced manufacturing sector?
Fantastic. So the first thing to understand about manufacturing is that it's not about production. So many people think that when we're talking about a manufacturing business, we're talking about a business that would bolt things together.
Right.
That's an important part of manufacturing, but it's actually not what we think about. So the first thing that we think about is we look for businesses that have got IP, who have developed a product that is able to be sold, and it's got a unique component to it. So the business that we're looking at the moment is Grabber Technologies, and that's a business that's got deep IP and biometrics, and there's science behind that, and there's coding, and there's patents. In other words, it's got something that's really valuable. We also want to invest in businesses that have got the ability to create that IP.
Right.
So the other end of the process, we look for businesses that have not only created the IP, but they know how to sell that. So they've got traction in their markets. So it's not a startup. They've got customers. They've understood that they need to sell, manufacture, ship, and service their product. So we're looking for companies that have shown that capability. Not only can they design it, but they can actually support it. And while I said at the outset, manufacturing is not about production, we also look for companies that understand that you've got to produce things really efficiently and in a cost-efficient manner.
Right.
So they would be the three key things that we look for. The first is an organization which is producing something which is complex, which has got real value, that if we sell it into a global market, it's going to create value. that they know how to sell it, they've got customers, and then ultimately they can produce it really well.
Amazing. Now, or how can you tell us how does Horizon 2 Capital Partners actively work with portfolio companies to drive growth and innovation, leveraging both local and global networks, operational expertise, and specialist knowledge?
So when we invest in a company, they're typically in the order of $1.5 to say $5 million worth of profit. So these are businesses that have got some scale, they've got some experience, and they know a lot about what they're doing. What they typically lack is really developed scaled sales engines. What they will also typically lack is some sophistication around capital structures, in other words, access to money and being able to use capital to grow their businesses really effectively. So the first thing is that we would typically get to know the business over a reasonably long period of time, 6 to 12 months before we invest. And as you're going through that process, you get to understand where the strengths, the weaknesses are.
Right.
Often it's about providing sales discipline and helping them scale their sales and marketing efforts into the market. And again, Grabber as an example, got great customers all around the world, and we're partnering with them to help them build out their sales and marketing teams in the US and in the Gulf states.
Yeah.
Now we have businesses in both those markets at the moment. We've got partners that are running business in both those markets.
Yeah.
We've done it before. We understand the mistakes that you can make. So at a really practical level, that's the work we're doing with Ross and his team as we speak, which is working through actually how they scale their sales and marketing in the US and the Gulf states. The other part is around and look, we're finance geeks as well as being manufacturing geeks. We can help a business actually access capital much more effectively, not only the capital that we bring in. And for a business that is of the scale that we're talking about, being able to access good capital that is able to be deployed at the right time is a really important part of a growth story.
Definitely. Now, transitioning to the long term, can you discuss Horizon 2's approach to exit strategies and how do you navigate liquidity events for investors, especially considering the longer holding periods typical in your investment model?
Yeah, look, a great question. So the first thing I'd say is that our business is about returning capital to our investors.
Right.
That's the business that we're in. That's how we get rewarded. So whilst our goal and our operational reality is working with our businesses, ultimately our customers are our shareholders. So the first thing I'd say is that we think about this question all the time. And because of the longer hold periods and because we're also working with businesses that are cash flow positive, we love the discipline of our companies paying yield on the way through dividends.
Right.
And we like that for a couple of reasons. First of all, because we all want to make some returns on the way through the investment, and that's an important part of our long-term investment thesis. The other reason we think that's a great idea is it creates a real discipline in the companies to make sure they're using the capital wisely. It's not the company's money, it's the shareholders' money.
Right.
Now, in terms of the liquidity event, one of the things that we do work on is exit strategies. So we have a business plan, but we also have an investment plan. And as part of that investment plan, we will continue to work on who the most likely trade buyer is if we think a trade sale is the most advantageous route. And that's for by and large, most of the deals we'll be doing, it is trade sales.
Right.
If it's an IPO, we'll be thinking about that too. What that means in practice is that we've got the operating management company, or the company we bought, actively working on who they're exiting to right throughout that process. It's not about telling a company or a supplier that you're going to be sold. What it is about is making sure you're talking to the 4 or 5 key people in your network or your industry that might be buyers, getting to know them on a first name basis.
Yeah.
So they're the 3 things that we do. The first is that we absolutely have this at the forefront of our mind all the time. We pay dividends on the way through, which is a really good way of making sure that the capital that's been allocated has worked very well.
Yes.
And last but not least, we are actively working on building out relationships with people that could buy us.
Amazing. That's wonderful, Richard. Now, this totally has been such a delightful conversation, and I'm so glad that you could join us here today at the Emergence Conference to share your insights and also about the work that you and your team are doing at Horizon 2 Capital Partners. For the viewers watching, if you would like to get in touch with the team, please see the details at the side of the screen or in the description of this video. I look forward to seeing you all in my next interview. Thanks, Richard.
Thank you very much.